Coming up next is going to be an interesting chat with two guest speakers, Mr. Aylwin Tan, Chief Customer Solutions Officer of CapitaLand Group, as well as Mr. Vincent Wong, Director of Research and Advanced Engineering at Continental Automotive Singapore. They will come to share more about their visions of a city of tomorrow and how their respective companies, CapitaLand and Continental, are working hard at shaping that future. Well, once again, thank you for joining us on site, Alwyn and Vincent.
Hey.
Well, today we are here going to be talking about the city of tomorrow and what it's going to look like. Both your companies have been heavily involved in architecting sustainable, imaginative cities of tomorrow. Let's start off first by describing your own respective visions and imagination for the city of tomorrow. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, I think to be fair, we are still evolving the city of the future. We have a slide. It can show you, in our construct, the city of futures will have three components, right? One is how the technology comes into play across the different verticals, enabled through digital convergence. The second part is how would this smart city enable new opportunities, new technologies, new industries to be created. And the third level is what does it mean to the people living in these cities? So when we look at smart cities of the future, it's not one size fits all, but you have to look at these three dimensions and find a compromise or a solution out of that.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you share the same vision, Vincent?
Yes, I share it. And it's an interesting question. And usually I like to look at the crystal ball.
That's right.
Yeah, how does it look like? So if I look at my crystal ball, what I can imagine, a smart city of the future, is highly connected to the individual. So like a typical work day, end of the day, we're tired. And the city, our office, they're able to recognize our mood. They're able to recognize that we are tired. When it's time to go home, the office can basically maybe switch off by itself, the aircon. It can actually call our autonomous vehicles, And we've been a mobility company, Continental, You can imagine, the ride back home, again, is connected, it's safe, it's convenient because of technologies. Technologies that makes the whole journey so safe that you barely realize it. You're home.
Wow. So earlier on, Alwyn, you talked about a city where it's a smart city, and Vincent drew it down to a hyper-personalized, so mini cities. So you and I, three of us, may be living in the same city in Singapore, but perhaps how we interact with the city is quite different. The parts of the city that we see is quite different.
Yeah. I think in a way it is about personalizing many of the conveniences to the residents, to the people who work there and people who study there, right? So that's how smart cities would be. It's not just about sustainability, it's about the different pieces of technology coming together to enable.
What is something that's on your wish list that you hope to see in the next 5 to 10 years, personally? Besides being able to call, temperature set your bath, set the aircon, call your autonomous cars, what else that's not already on the charts yet?
Yeah, convenience, convenience and safety. So from perspective of being a person living in the city, I want to be safe, right? So imagine a city that allows me to safely cross the road, right? That I can be fully assured that my young children, the elderly, the handicaps, that they're able to go about their daily lives in a very safe way. So using technology, as what Aylwin says, to help the people living in the city to move about in a very safe and healthy way. That would be a nice thing to have.
That's true. No, it's, yes, please.
To me, is creating more time for ourselves because today, I think all of us are living in a rat race, moving from one place to another. You are just one example. So with technology, how does it allow us to spend less time traveling, spend more time doing the things that we want? A lot of the mundane stuff that we do can be done by technology rather than us having to do that.
Although the interesting thing is, I was remarking to an earlier speaker, is that we thought that when washing machines came and all that, that we will have a lot more time, computers, but of course now with them we are tethered to our devices. So it seems like humans continually find things to fill our plates with.
Yeah, I mean, time, not necessarily free time, but time to do things that you have not had time to do before, right? So today, if you look at using an example of washing machine, you can wash 3 loads in a day, right? In the past, when you have to manually wash, I'm quite sure you don't do it so often.
I won't tell you how much I used to wash in the old days. That's interesting. And you know what I find interesting is that you both mentioned safety, time, modern conveniences and comfort, things that are really basic, yet are still unattainable in many ways for us.
Yeah.
Right, so help us understand how each of your companies are helping residents work towards that future in cities. How have you played a role, company level, in shaping the cities of the future in a sustainable, inclusive, and safe manner, including cybersecurity? So maybe for now, I'll start with
Vincent, you can.
Yes.
I'll start with Vincent,
Yeah.
and you could perhaps also share a bit with us on the Smart City Mobility and Transport Hub that was launched.
Yeah. Yeah, so from Continental, we truly believe in technology and innovations. So 2 buzzwords. So the company invests a lot, into the future using AI, cybersecurity, robotics. So these are some of the big investment in terms of projects and manpower, to build up the competencies. And most importantly, we want to deploy it to the cities. So what we do is we work with companies like CapitaLand, also startups, and as well the universities. So by collaborating together within this ecosystem and using some cities as a test bed, for example, Singapore or in Germany. So we are able to bring our proof of concepts and test it out with end users, real users, and with that we refine our solutions before we finally roll it out. So one example can be like what we are doing now, getting back to all these vulnerable road users to help them cross the road safely. So we have connected vehicles by connecting them to mobile phones, connecting them to children's. So the cars are able to detect children crossing the road, and basically informing the drivers. So these are examples of technologies in the testing phase. And hopefully we can one day really roll it out as a service to the cities.
So let's play on that a little bit more, because in Singapore we have heard about young kids near misses dashing out, or unfortunately recently pet roadkill because they dashed out as well.
Yeah.
How would that whole system of connected devices and vehicles and triggering systems work? Does it require everybody to be connected to that same system for it to work? Kind of play it out for us a little bit more.
So in the end, if you want it to be fully inclusive, of course you need to get as many users and IoT devices connected. That's the end goal, But we don't wait for that day to happen. We are now doing step by step, connecting, let's say, the more targeted group, like school children or handicaps. We're going to start with, this kind of audience first. And then slowly we get more and more people into the system.
So I'm trying to visualize it. Is it in the form of an app? Do they have to wear? Is it wearable, for example?
Yes.
It's
Basically, it's apps, it's wearables, it's using 5G technologies.
Yeah. Huawei talked quite a bit about that earlier.
Correct. And of course, cyber secured as well.
Encrypted, right, on the back end.
Yes.
Wow, interesting. And I'll come back to you later with the wrong-way detection system. But moving on to Aylwin first. Of course, CapitaLand also launched the Smart Urban Co-Innovation Lab. Tell us more about that and other ways that CapitaLand is trying to drive these cities of the future.
Vincent mentioned about his focus on technology and innovation. For us, as a real estate developer, especially large-scale projects, large township developers, one concept that we pursue is co-innovation, and hence the formation of the Smart Urban Co-Innovation Lab. We believe that at that scale of project, it is not something that we alone can do everything ourselves. And therefore, it requires us to work with multiple partners across different domains. And we become like a receptacle to catalyze the deployment of technologies, innovations, so that we can achieve the system's effect, right? So if we want to do that, then the very first layer, building on what you just mentioned, what do you need is a very consistent data capture kind of platform to allow the different systems that we build in future to be able to communicate and interact with each other. Can you imagine if I've got 10 different systems and each of them like speak different dialects, one speak Hokkien, one speak Cantonese, one speak Teochew? It's going to have a difficult way to drive smart cities. So just now, if you notice the diagram that we put out, the 6 verticals are the key areas that the Smart Urban Co-Innovation Lab focuses on. And at the core, the circle, is where the data convergence comes together, driven by a data platform, driven by AI, driven by 5G, driven by cloud. And all this must have a common platform to interoperate. Yeah.
Are you able to share with us a project that the Co-Innovation Lab is working on with your partners?
Yes, of course. I welcome people to visit us. Some of the things that we are putting together is, example, workplace optimizations, right? A lot of companies, a lot of startups especially, look at building value-adding services, but unless you have a common platforms that these services are available, this data are available, then it's very difficult for you to build applications on it, right? Because you don't have the data, right? The other project that why Vincent and us, we are also working together in a mobility space is, can we look at creating a cellular vehicle to everything kind of a platform, where it's no longer just Continental, but it's us, it's different people coming together to each contribute technologies, but be able to work with each other. So I think this is why co-innovation, is the way that we think technology companies, developers like us, and many partners, including government agencies, can come together and examine the projects. Yeah.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. How do you stop people from pushing their own agendas? If ultimately everybody has to be on one unified platform, you can only choose one for scale.
Yeah.
What if people have differing, private agendas? How do you weed those out?
No, I think it's inevitable that all of us will exist for our own objectives, but in creating a common co-innovation platform, I think one of the things that we do a lot of, we spend a lot of time aligning, is what is the outcome that we want to achieve, right? And so that's one. And second is, how open are we, to collaborate with each other? There's always differences, but I think so long as the alignment as well as what are we prepared to put in, are clear, I think we are able to manage this pretty well so far.
So far, well, I know that the lab was only open last year in October, so I'll come back to you in a year's time or more. Vincent, would you like to share a bit more about how you're partnering with CapitaLand and companies like CL to move things forward?
Yes. So like what Aylwin shares, innovation, we view it, we cannot do it alone. We need to connect to the ecosystem. It's not only about a real estate company or automotive company or telco company, because in the end, all this technology has to fuse and work together. Because the end user is not going to buy bits and pieces of technology. They want the holistic solutions. So for us, basically, we're always open, and we're always willing to speak to different companies that, of course, with a common goal, to advance our technology levels for smart cities.
So again, I'm going to, because there are some people listening that might be more concrete visual thinkers. They're thinking, okay, now, pulling together what Continental has launched in terms of a smart mobility hub, the co-innovation lab, all the players, now paint for me anew that city of the future. What is that going to look like? If we put some of Conti together, Continental, of CapitaLand, of some of your other partners like Schneider, Cisco, and so on.
Yeah. So I think you made a good point. 1 year from now, maybe we can have these sessions at the lab itself, because we believe that smart cities is not something that we talk about. It's something that the people can experience. So that's where we are focusing on now, and why we have different projects coming onto the platform, essentially to showcase and let people experience for themselves what smart cities of the future could be like. You don't have to wait for 10 years. You can start to see snippets of different parts of it coming together, even from now.
Correct.
And you welcome co-creation or some inputs from members of the public
Definitely,
as well when you go to
definitely,
the lab.
yeah, definitely.
Yes. And I think this co-creation and doing it in small steps is actually what we are looking for. Not looking for the final end results, but always, trying, deploying, getting feedback. So I think this is important in order to, in the end, be fast and quick.
So very much taking a leaf from the startups books that you work with, build, measure, learn, iterate, right?
Yeah.
And move forward very quickly. Now, okay, so maybe one more question here is, which cities are pushing the boundaries of innovation in realizing the smart city version besides Singapore? And what can the world learn from it?
You want to take a step at it first?
Sure. Maybe I mentioned one city of what I like, Hamburg. Hamburg is in north of Germany. So it's a port city, one of the busiest harbor in the world. And it has about 2 million population. And what happened is for many years, they have been investing the city in mobility. So they have shuttle service, full electric vehicles. And the target is always to be inclusive, using clean energy, offering on-demand services to bring their citizens around the city. So it's a good collaboration between private, so many private companies are investing in there, and highly supported also by the city government. This is an important part for the whole puzzle to click.
And there's huge incentive really also because the Port of Hamburg is downtown itself.
Correct.
So people definitely have a vested stake in reducing noise, pollution, emissions, and so on.
Yeah.
Well, a question from David in the audience. Do you see Singapore taking the lead and setting new global standards for smart cities to ensure interoperability? So not just operability in Singapore, but Singapore and other countries as well. If so, what are the next immediate steps for this to happen?
No, I think Singapore has all the necessary ingredients to be a leader in smart cities. We are compact. Our literacy on all the digital stuff, and our government is investing a lot on the digital platforms and so on. I just think that to take the next step, especially for my industries, the built environment industries, we need to have a standard way of collecting data. Today, it's still dependent on the technology partners that we use. So I think that is one step to allow us to be able to operate interoperable data exchange and to enable that to happen. Yeah. So that is something already our government agencies are working on. Yeah.
Really having to persuade
right.
our neighbors and partners to
Yeah.
all be on the same system and collect data, data
Yeah.
conversions.
Data conversions, yeah.
Vincent, what do you think?
Similar view, because as the more people or user we get into the platform, then the better the whole data exchange can be.
So the next steps is really getting people on the same data platform, more data and more people on the platform together.
Yeah.
Well, with that note, since we are very much in the spirit of co-creation, co-innovation, is there anything you would like to say to our listeners today?
But I think thank you to the organizers for inviting Vincent and I to this platform. I think this is an interesting opportunity to share what we do, and also it's through platform like this that technology's awareness of what each of us are doing, what are some challenges that allow us to move forward. Otherwise, we may be innovating in isolation, and therefore, it will not allow us to develop the full vision and potential of a smart city.
That's true.
Yeah.
So from my side also, thank you to GoBell for inviting us for this event. And of course, I do an open call. Yeah? So join us, join me, Aylwin. So our companies are very open to co-innovate together, and let's drive the future together.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially when we're talking about building the cities and future and lives that we want for ourselves.
Correct.
All the more we need everybody's involvement.
Yep.
So with that, thank you so much again, Aylwin and Vincent. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you again, Aylwin and Vincent. Indeed, in many ways, we are already living out the city of tomorrow, thanks to large part to both your companies.